Recently, I've seen countless ban list predictions, but after seeing the results from YCS San Paulo and YCS Vancouver, do we really need to consider Unchained? What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Cards and Coffee. Today, not only are we going to be going over all the cards and decks that I could see potentially being hit on the ban list, but also at the very end, I'm going to give my personal prediction on what I actually expect Konami to do, because let's be honest, there's so many cards that need to be addressed, but Konami's not really one for hitting a bunch of cards all at once, at least usually. But of course, before we dive into all that, make sure you guys go grab yourself a cup of coffee or something. That way you guys can sit down and tune in. Alright, so like I said, first we're going to go over all the cards that I could definitely see being hit on the upcoming list. And again, make sure you stick around to the end, that way you can see my personal prediction on what I expect Konami to actually do. But let's hop right into it. For the cards I could see being unlimited on this upcoming list, I see no reason why cards like Gazelle, Ancient Fairy Dragon, Spellbook of Judgment, and heck, even Orange Light could come off of the list. If all these cards went to 3 today, I really would expect there to be little to no change to the format. Gazelle would probably be the only exception. I actually think the Salamangreat deck right now is actually really good with the new support, which by the way I just recently did a video on, and if you want to see that profile and some of the combos you can do, make sure you guys go check it out after this video. But in addition, there's a bunch of other cards I could easily see coming off the list. Stuff like Astrograph and even Monkey Board really could help the Pendulum decks out when really they're not doing anything right now anyway. Heck, I could even see Beatrice and Upstart Goblin going to 3. Whether or not Konami would really do that, I doubt it, but I don't think it would really impact the meta that much. I don't know, maybe Konami's just afraid that Sky Striker will have 3 Upstart Goblins or something. But then moving on to the semi-limited section of the list, personally I would love to see Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity move to this section of the list. If I'm completely honest, these cards deserve to be at 1, and I just don't see Konami doing that, but so many decks benefit from these consistency cards, and since Desires is already at 2, why not move the other ones as well? Technically, these are also hits to Kashtira and Labyrinth, so that's something to factor in. Really, that's not the only hit I want to see on those decks, which is why I'm also putting Fenrir to 2, and of course Big Welcome as well. Both of these cards are really important to their respective decks, and I think hitting the consistency is really important. We are hitting Kashtira even further down the line, but I just feel like Fenrir is very splashable in so many different decks. And while Big Welcome could be hit to 1, there's other cards we're going to hit down the line as well, so don't worry about that. But also there's cards like Mind Control and Change of Heart that I could easily see coming to 2, but whether or not Konami would actually do that as well, yeah, I really doubt it. Now, moving on to what I would like to see on the limited section of the list. After seeing the results from YCS Sao Paulo and YCS Vancouver, it really begs the question of whether or not you should be hitting the Unchained deck. Personally, I think the deck is very healthy and a really good deck in the format and a great meta call. So personally for me, I'd really hate to see this deck be killed, especially since they got a lot of new cards in the most recent set. But if I had to hit one card on the list, I wouldn't want to kill the engine, maybe touch the consistency. So for that reason, I think putting Abomination's Prison to 1 not only is a fair hit to the consistency, but doesn't kill the deck and prevent you from playing it at all. But also, after looking at the results from the YCSs, there were so many decks that were really unrepresented that so many people have expected to get hit on this upcoming list. But for me, just because they weren't that represented in these YCSs doesn't mean I wouldn't want to hit them. So for me, that's why I personally would put something like Branded Fusion to 1, My Friend Pearly to 1, Runic Fountain to 1, alongside Lubellion, Magnamut, and of course Drew's Worm. I know these probably seem like really aggressive hits, but I don't think it really will phase the decks that much outside of consistency. Personally, I think the diversity that we've seen in the last month has been really cool and really refreshing. But also, there's cards I could see coming off the ban list like Mimic Saber Invoker, Glow Bulb, heck, the Dragon Rulers, or even Harp Horror can make their way into the game. Do I really see these coming back? Personally, I don't know, but I definitely think there's some cards that really wouldn't change the game if they did, so for that reason, I definitely think they should be put at 1. But also, I'm a little biased. I'd love to see something like Colossus or even Kit Kalos come back, but really, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And finally, moving on to what I would like to see hit on the ban list, and again, I don't expect Konami to hit all of this, but as mentioned, Kashtira needs to be hit, Arise Heart needs to be banned. This card really influences the meta, whether it's making up half the top 32 cut, or just a couple that made their way into top 16. Even though this deck can be inconsistent, it really just influenced so much of deck building going into the meta, and even though a deck like Unchained has made its way into the meta, putting a halt to the dominance that is Kashtira. I still think if we're going to hit all these other decks, you need to address the elephant in the room because Arise Heart really is that influential. Oh, and I'd also ban Dimensional Shifter, even though I don't know if it's really going to get hit or not. But then after that, I also wanted to hit Labyrinth a little bit more. While it's not the best deck in the room, it can do some really degenerate things. So I'm sure, just like many of you, I would love to see Eradicator Epidemic Virus ban alongside Dimensional Barrier as well. Even without the Labyrinth deck, these cards are just really annoying and very degenerate to have to play against. But the fact that Labyrinth also gets to just pull these out of the deck at any time really makes for a really unfair strategy when you're just trying to play the game. And then of course, depending how much you want to go down the list of decks that could be hit, I could definitely see Striker Dragon being banned, or even the Aromage Link 2 for the plant deck getting banned, but I don't personally think you need to, even though they are very strong decks that have been around for a while. There really are so many cards that you could take on and off the ban list that could really shake up this meta. But now let's move on to what I personally think Konami's going to do with this upcoming FNL list. So as mentioned, there are so many cards that I could definitely see be on the list in some capacity, but when it comes to the unlimits, I really just expect Ancient Fairy Dragon and Spellbook of Judgment to make their way off the list. I really would like to see more go to 3, but I just don't expect that from Konami. But then moving on to the semi-limits, that's where I would expect Gazelle to show up. I don't expect Konami to just jump into 3 Gazelle, even though maybe they might want to help push the Soulburner set. But also, I still expect Fenrir to go to 2, and this is actually where I'd expect Dimensional Shifter to go. And rather than hitting something like My Friend in the limited section, this is actually where I would expect Konami to put Sleepy Memory. I really hope they don't put it to 1 like they did Delicious Memory, but I guess time will tell. Hopefully it'll stick at 2. And as for the limits, I really do expect Branded Fusion to go to 1, but there is, I guess, a chance that they don't touch it at all. But in addition, I also expect Magnamut to go to 1, Runic Tip. This is where I'd expect Big Welcome to be. And again, I don't see why they wouldn't, because they've done it on Master Duel. This is also where I'd expect Invoker to make its way back. So far, this list probably looks very lackluster compared to what I originally said. And then finally, moving on to the bans, I really do expect Konami to finally hit Arise Heart. And then, of course, after that, I really expect Eradicator Virus to finally be hit on the list. I really don't think Konami's going to ignore the fact that it got activated so many times in the top cut of our North American World Championship qualifier. And maybe I'm wrong, but this is basically where I would expect the bans to end. No barrier or anything else of that nature. But that's going to wrap things up for today's video. Please let me know down in the comment section what you guys think, not only on my first list that I mentioned, but what I expect Konami to do. At the end of the day, Konami's going to do whatever they think is necessary, and we really can never truly predict what they're going to do, but my fingers are crossed. I expect some big things, or at least I'm hoping for it. So comment down below and let me know what you think, and here's hoping to see you guys on the next one. Peace.